Hello everyone, welcome to Options with Doug, streaming live on Monday and Wednesday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Bookmap Discord and the Bookmap YouTube channel. Before I get started, I need to go through the disclosures. General disclosure, all Bookmap limited materials, information, and presentations are for educational purposes only and should not be considered specific investment advice nor recommendations. Risk disclosure, trading futures, equities, and options involves substantial risk of loss. It is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. Here's my contact information. The best way to get in touch with me is through Discord. My name on Discord is Doug P. Also in Bookmap Discord, there's an Options-Doug chat channel. You can post questions, comments, and content related to the topics of my presentation and the topics of the channel that I'll go through in just a moment. I'm also on X. My name there is @DougPlass. Here are the key tenets to my approach to trading. I believe that options trades and market maker hedging activity are key drivers of price in many stocks and futures, and that certainly applies to the large cap tech stocks like the Magnificent Seven stocks, as well as the equity index futures like the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ 100. And for the S&P 500, SPX is the underlying index, SPY is the ETF version of that index, and the ES futures contract is a derivative of SPX. And when traders buy and sell puts and calls in SPX and SPY, market makers take the opposite side of those trades and they hedge their delta exposure with ES futures. And we'll certainly see examples of that today, as well as how prices reacted at certain SPY and SPX levels. And for the NASDAQ 100, NDX is the underlying index. QQQ is the much more liquid ETF version of that index, and the NQ futures contract is a derivative of NDX. And just like the S&P 500, when traders buy and sell puts and calls in SPX and NDX and QQQ, market makers take the opposite side of the trades and they hedge their delta exposure with NQ futures. The focus of my presentation today and the focus of the Options-Doug chat channel is options order flow, the impact of options markets on stocks and futures, and the influence of market maker hedging flow on price action. I have a two-step process for trading. The first is planning, and I use positional analysis. I look at how traders and market makers are positioned in the options market and how those positions change from day to day to develop a thesis regarding expected trading range and volatility for the day, as well as the directional bias. And the second step in my process is execution. I look at real-time order flow on Bookmap and real-time market maker hedging flow on Spotgamma Hero to confirm my thesis and for setups. And when I talk about setups today, I will be focusing on an underlying asset. Setups in that asset can be taken with futures contracts, shares of stock, or options, depending on the asset as well as the way you like to trade. Questions and comments are welcome, and I will be watching both the Options-Doug chat channel as well as the chat and YouTube for your questions and comments. Please feel free to post. I'll do my best to answer your questions. Here's my agenda for today, Monday, July 28th. First of all, I want to go over news items, economic data, events, and earnings. It's a very big week, a lot going on this week, so I'll go over that. Then I'll review my positional analysis. Then I'll review some setups from earlier today. Then I'll take a look at the live market. And when I get to the live market, if anyone has any stocks they want me to take a look at, please let me know, and I'll be glad to do that. All right, let's get started with news items, economic data, events. And I'm looking here at the Spotgamma dashboard home screen of the events calendar. So coming up this week, first of all, I'll start with events and economic data. So tomorrow at 10 a.m., JOLTS data comes out, job openings at 10 a.m. That's tomorrow. Then on Wednesday, GDP data comes out at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Then one of the probably the big event for the week is the FOMC announcement at 2 p.m. Press conference begins at 2:30 p.m. The announcement comes out in the middle of my webinar on Wednesday. So I will stop whatever I'm doing and will watch the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ 100 to see how traders are reacting to the announcement. Really don't expect much. We'll see, but don't expect much because the outcome is pretty much assumed to be no rate hikes. We'll talk more about that on Friday, and then rate cuts. Fed is expected to hold rates steady, so the algos and traders will be focused on the press conference, what Powell has to say. All right, so that is Wednesday. Thursday, PCE data comes out at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And then on Friday, jobs report, 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And then at 10 a.m., Michigan Consumer Sentiment and ISM Manufacturing PMI. So that is the economic data and events for the week. Now let's focus on earnings. Big week for earnings. Let's take a look at the earnings chart. All right, so quite a few companies reporting earnings this week. I'll just focus on a few that I follow closely. So on Wednesday, after the market closes, three stocks that I follow closely, Hood, Meta, and Microsoft report earnings. So two of the MAG 7 stocks. Remember, Tesla reported earnings last week. All right, then on Thursday, after the market closes, Amazon, Apple, Coinbase, and Strategy all report earnings. So that's on Thursday after the market closes. All right, so those are the stocks that I follow. So that would be 4 of the 7 Magnificent 7 stocks reporting earnings on Wednesday and Thursday. All right, let's take a look at let's move on to positional analysis now. Let's take a look at the SP 500. And kind of an unusual Monday recently with the market going down. Not used to seeing that. The call buyers have left the building. And the SP 500, this is the ES Futures and Bookmap, moving lower. Let me point out a couple of key levels. So this is, I'm starting price action here with the open yesterday evening. And as everyone I'm sure is aware, that Trump announced a tariff agreement, trade agreement with the EU on Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening. And the market, the rally was really kind of muted. And then ES reversed right at the upper daily expected move and has been trading in a downward trend since then. All right, this is also the SPY absolute gamma strike call wall acting as resistance. Key level today was the 6,400 level. More about that in a few minutes. And now what was a positive gamma zone right around 6390 has now SPX ES is broken down below that level in this continued downtrend. All right, so before I spend more time on this chart, let's take a look at a higher time frame. I'm going to go to SPX, the underlying index. So the V-shaped recovery after the Liberation Day announcement. And this downtrend really began with the February expiration, shown by this red vertical line here. Price reversed higher. A little bit of a pullback, and then the rally resumed after the June expiration and has continued higher up to 6,400 during regular trading hours. SPX trades just during regular trading hours, even though options options, SPX options trade overnight. All right, so that is the SPX. This is a 1 year, 1 day chart in Thinkorswim. Now let's take a look at a 30-day, 1 hour chart. Again, in Thinkorswim. So here is the Resumption of the rally that began June expiration. Resistance at 6,300. And then last week, SPX broke out above the 6,300 level. And then again, during regular trading hours, finding resistance at 6,400. All right, let's take a look at some of the levels on this chart. We'll start with expected moves. The weekly expected moves are shown with the dashed purple lines. This is based on the options market, based on the closing price for SPX from Friday. SPX trading right in the middle of that range. Then the dashed blue lines are showing the lower and upper daily expected move, also based on the options market, based on the closing price for SPX from Friday. Again, I do post those levels in Discord every day the evening before, so I posted these levels in Discord yesterday afternoon. So again, SPX trading also inside the daily range. And remember, ES touched its upper daily expected move before the cash open. All right, so those are the expected moves. Now let's take a look at the Spotgamma levels. These are based on gamma-weighted open interest. They're provided to Spotgamma subscribers on a variety of trading platforms. Again, this is Thinkorswim, a 30-day, 1-hour chart. I'm going to point out the key daily levels. First of all, the put wall is at 5,800. That's a strike with large net negative gamma that can be expected to act as support. Note that level did move down from yesterday. So it was up at 6,100, so it moved down pretty substantially today. And it's, of course, not in play. All right, the next level up is 6,000. That's the absolute gamma strike. That's the strike with the largest absolute positive and negative gamma. So that's where most of the gamma-weighted open interest is concentrated. And again, that level not in play. It's been at 6,000 for quite some time, with a few brief excursions. All right, next is the volatility trigger at 63.45. That is Spotgamma's proprietary gamma and volatility flip level. Below that level, market makers' position on the gamma curve is negative. In a negative gamma environment, market makers have to trade with price to their delta exposure. That tends to enhance or increase volatility. Above that level, market makers' position on the gamma curve is positive. In a positive gamma environment, market makers have to trade against price to hedge their delta exposure. That tends to subdue or decrease volatility. And note that is based on Spotgamma's older or legacy model. And we'll see then actually today, based on their newer model, we'll take a look at Trace in just a couple of minutes, that SPX is trading in negative gamma today. All right, then finally, the call wall is up at 6,500. It did move down lower to 6,400. Now back up to 6,500. That's a strike with the largest net positive gamma that can be expected to act as resistance. So the potential range from the floor to the ceiling expanded. So the put wall moved lower, the call wall moved higher. So the potential range support at 5,800, resistance at 6,500. All right, that is a 30-day, 1-hour chart. Let's wrap up our view of SPX with a 1-minute chart. All right, there's that break above 6,300 last Tuesday that I was talking about. Very steady uptrend, a little bit of consolidation. On Thursday, rally resumed, and now, presumably, the target is hit, 6,400. Again, remember, this is regular trading hours. And now, SPX in a slow grind down, finding resistance at 6,400. That's a large gamma 2 level, and then a combo 2 level, combining SPX and SPY, gamma weighted open interest just above that. So those levels acting as resistance today. All right, that's SPX. Let's take a quick look at SPY. Then we'll get back to Bookmap. All right, so here's SPY. Regular trading hours shown with a dark shaded portion. And of course, in Charles Schwab, Thinkorswim, SPY does trade 24 hours a day. So began Sunday at 8 p.m. Resistance at the 640 call wall. That's also the absolute gamma strike. Remember, I pointed that level out on the Bookmap chart. Price did trade above that level, but after moving lower, it is SPY has continued to trade lower, now below the 637 volatility trigger. All right, that's SPY. Back to Bookmap now. So again, before the cash open, ES found resistance at the upper daily expected move. All right, let's zoom in now, closer to regular trading hours. All right, so here's the important 6,400 and 6,401, just above that, acting as support before the cash open. Price broke down below that level just before 9 a.m., then found resistance after the cash open. So 6,400 support before the cash open, and then resistance after. Anybody have any questions about the importance of these levels? Oguz, welcome. Glad you're here. And wish you a nice week as well. All right, so 6,400 key level today. Price broke down below that level, and now trading down below the SPY 637 volatility trigger that I pointed out, and then the 6390 level. We'll take a look at that in just a minute. That was some positive gamma. That was we could see that on Trace earlier today. Positive gamma around that level did act as support earlier, and then that gamma moved away, or presumably traders took off positions, or the gamma was gone, and now price has broken down below that level. So that was positive gamma providing support before, now no longer there. All right, so again, I'm focusing on SPY and SPX levels. I hope it's clear why I'm doing that. All right, so there is a difference in price between ES and SPX. And today that difference, ES to SPX offset, is right around 33 points. Actually, it's a little bit higher than 33 right now. Earlier today, it was right at 33. So right now, I've got between 33 and 34. So I'm using 33. So I'm showing SPX 6,400 at ES 6,433. And Carr, no sir, all clear. Thank you very much for the confirmation. All right, that's the S&P 500. We'll take a look at setups in just a few minutes. And let's move on. Let's take a look at NASDAQ, wrap up our positional analysis, and then get to some setups in the live market. All right, so NASDAQ, let's zoom out to the entire session so far. NQ did trade above its upper daily expected move, found resistance once before, then just after 10 a.m., 2 a.m., did break out higher, traded back down below. This is also the QQQ 570 call wall. All right, there you go. And then just like the S&P 500 ES, it's been downhill ever since then. And note, it looks like NQ did trade down below the NDX 23,320 put wall. More about that in just a minute. And now maybe finding support at that level. All right, let's take a look at the underlying index charts. Let's go to QQQ first. Let's go to QQQ. So we can isolate the levels in play for QQQ and NDX. So just like SPY, resistance at the call wall at 570. Price broke above that level, then traded down below. And QQQ is still above its volatility trigger at 566. I forgot to mention for SPY, the volatility trigger, absolute gamma strike, both shifted higher. And for QQQ, the volatility trigger shifted higher. All right, so those are the levels in play primarily at the 570.18 level. Those are the highest levels for QQQ, highest spot gamma levels. Or let's take a look at NDX. Whoops. So NDX, even though it is not as liquid as QQQ, the NDX levels often come in play. Case in point, support at this 23,300. That's a large gamma 2 level, right around 11:15. And this drop was actually news related. And it was the Senate Democrats opposed resuming AI chip sales to China. So that caused that sharp V drop right down to 23,300. And then most recently, again, the put wall, 23,320, acting as support. We'll keep an eye on that. See if price tests that level again. All right, so there's NASDAQ, NDX. All right, let's go back to Bookmap. All right, so let me zoom in to more recent price action. So just like the S&P 500, where I have SPY and SPX levels on that chart. For ES, I have NDX and QQQ levels on this chart. Big cluster of levels here. And there's the 23,300 level, large gamma 2 level, right in the middle of that, acting as support. Then there's the 23,320 put wall. And note the put wall for NDX is higher than the call wall, which can happen. And Aguz asked, what should we understand from call wall and put wall? So the call wall is a level that you expect to act as resistance, and the put wall level you should expect to act as support. So that's in a call wall and a put wall in a nutshell. And so far the put wall doing its job, as well as the QQQ call wall and the SPY call wall. All right, there's NASDAQ. Again, we'll talk about setups in just a couple of minutes. Let's wrap up our positional analysis by taking a look at gamma. So I'm going to go to Trace, the Trace Gamma heat map. This is available to Spotgamma subscribers. So this is based on Spotgamma's newer model, their synthetic open interest model. Red shading indicates negative gamma, blue shading positive gamma. Remember, in positive gamma, blue shading, market makers are trading against price, so they're buying dips and selling rips. And in red shading, negative gamma, they're trading with price. So SPX, this is for SPX, clearly in a pocket of negative gamma. Let's step back. Let's go back to right around 10 a.m. And that's when SPX found support. It was actually just above the 63.90 level, that positive gamma level that was noted as support in the Spotgamma AM Founders Note. Right there at 63.90. So as we step forward in time now, so that was at 10 a.m. Let's step forward in time. Keep an eye on that 63.90 bar. That gamma is gone now. Positive gamma. And the red shading is slipping down. So that negative gamma, red negative gamma zone is shifting down. And that 63.90 level actually becomes negative gamma now. All right, so that's the current state. And it looks like there is some positive gamma support down below 63.80. So add 33 to that. That would be a 64.13 for ES. All right, so based on this, I was looking for support down below, but that is moving down now. All right, let's take a look at some setups. I'm going to start with the SP 500, and this is the HIRO signal, HIRO, Hedging Impact Real-Time Options, also available to Spotgamma subscribers. There are two lines on this chart. The white line is price for SPX, and the purple line is the HIRO signal, showing options trades and market maker hedging activity for the S&P 500 index components. This is the index signal. Index components are SPX, SPY, ES, and XSP. And a falling HIRO signal indicates traders are taking negative delta positions. They are buying puts and or selling calls. A rising HIRO signal. Again, remember, this is the news, that sharp drop, move higher, and then traders resume taking negative delta positions. But in a rising HIRO signal, that indicates traders are buying calls and or selling puts. All right, net for the day, and this is a decent size, minus 4.6 billion delta notional. Traders taking negative delta options positions. All right, I'm going to shift to puts and calls, and I'm going to have to jump back. So let's take a look now at setups for the morning. So looking at the index signal from the open, traders were buying puts. That's shown by the blue line. Falling blue line indicates traders are buying puts. Falling orange line indicates traders are selling calls. So that was one short setup. And then there were a couple of more with these call peaks. So in the morning, it was a pretty choppy, slight downtrend morning. Call peak short setups. Efficient here. Welcome. Glad you're here. Asked, do you mean selling stock when you said Tesla? Buy Tesla stock to hedge their delta exposure. No, I meant buy. So that's why Tesla's moving higher. I'll get to Tesla in a few minutes. All right, so here's the SP 500. And it looks like the put buyers primarily driving price lower. And also call sellers, and again call sellers. So starting right around 12:20, This is bearish momentum. Traders are selling calls and buying puts, and the S&P 500 continues to reverse lower. So in this case, when traders are buying puts and selling calls in the S&P 500 index components, market makers are taking the opposite side of those trades. So they're taking positive delta positions, and they have to sell futures to hedge their delta exposure. All right, so this was really the key turning point, right around 10:15. So let's go to Bookmap now and take a look at that. Go back to ES. So there's that key turning point. Remember, right around the 6,400 level that it acted as support before, now acting as resistance. Great entry point for short. Support, then resistance. All right, let's take a look at the Bookmap chart to find the clues. Find the clues in the Bookmap chart. So first of all, large traders are fading that move with iceberg orders. That's shown by the falling light blue line. And then also sell stop orders were helping to fuel that move lower. That's shown by the falling yellow line. And there were some aggressive buyers coming in. You can see right here the large green volume dots. Volume dots in Bookmap show market orders. Green volume dots indicate more buyers than sellers. Magenta dots, more sellers than buyers. Buyers are exhausted, sellers come in. Large traders with iceberg orders, traders taking negative delta positions, and price reverses at a level that had acted as support before, and you expect to act as resistance. That's exactly what happened, and now the S&P 500 continues to move lower. All right, that's the S&P 500. And again, back to Hero, currently in a state of bearish momentum with traders buying puts and selling calls. Let's take a look at the other signal available for the S&P 500. This is the S&P 500 equity signal. What this chart is showing is options trades and market maker hedging activity for all 500 stocks in the S&P 500 index. So you can see the call buyers were in at the open just like any other Monday, not really getting their way, and they took the foot off the gas right around 10. Remember, 10:15, that's when the S&P 500 started to move lower. So the call buyers that were in at the open took their foot off the gas, and the rising blue line also indicates traders were selling puts, and then they took their foot off the gas, and price continued to move lower. So net from about right here, call buyers up and down, but not doing much, and traders now buying puts. So the index signal, I think, providing more clarity today. And again, the state now is bearish momentum. All right, so that's the S&P 500. Let's take a look at NASDAQ. So this is the index signal for NASDAQ. So showing options trades and market maker hedging activity for the NASDAQ components that we looked at earlier, NDX and QQQ. So you can see the call buyers were in the morning for about the first half hour. Took the foot off the gas, came back in, but net, since around 10 a.m., calls flat, traders buying puts, and then there's the MAG 7 signal we can also take a look at for the NASDAQ. showing options trades and market maker hedging activity for the stocks known as the Magnificent Seven: Apple, Amazon, Google, Meta, Microsoft, NVIDIA, and Tesla. Call buyers in and put sellers. Call buyers up until about 10:15, 10:10, 10:20. Foot off the gas. Put sellers. Foot off the gas. So I thought the S&P 500 index signal was the most clear of all the index hero signals. Let's take a look at NASDAQ. Go to NQ. So NASDAQ continues to move lower, maybe heading back down. So remember, ES trading down at new lows, and NASDAQ looking to test a previous low at 23,300. And it looks like it may be headed to a breakdown below that level or down, test that level again pretty quickly. All right, that's NASDAQ. Let's take a look at some stocks. Then we'll get to the live market. First stock I want to take a look at. Let me actually take a look at something else. So I'm going to go back to Thinkorswim. I've got this watch list. This is, so for those of you who may not be familiar with Hero, Hero is not available for all stocks. So it's a limited list, mostly stocks that are pretty heavily driven by options trading. And I have narrowed that list down a little bit more. So there's still quite a few stocks in this list, but these are all available with Hero. And I have ranked these. So this is my what I call Hero All. Rank these by percentage change at the open. And note at the top, we'll take a look at a couple of these stocks. SMCI, Tesla, AMD. All right, let's reverse the ranking now. So these are the stocks that I'm interested in trading. All right, note at the top here, some of the smaller speculative stocks. Nuclear energy, NNE, SMR, quantum computing, QBTS, Rocket Lab, Archer, aviation, aerospace, sound, AI, Circle, crypto, Oklo, energy, Redwire, aerospace again. So a lot of the smaller speculative stocks that have driven markets or helped it have been moving pretty substantially higher. Kind of not necessarily meme stocks, but definitely driving price higher, lower this morning. And let me point out also, I have highlighted the Mag 7 stocks. So the worst performer of the Mag 7 stocks today is Google. So let's take a look at that first. Let's go to Google. See what options traders are doing at Google. So that's how I look for stocks to trade, or one way I look for stocks to trade. Just I'm looking at the ends of the list, the worst performers and the best performers. So we'll look at some of both. All right, so let's go to Google, and this is a bearish opening drive. Traders selling calls at the open. Flow alert comes in just after the cash open. Signals significant options activity. Get your attention, and of course the trade here was to sell Google, sell calls, buy puts as Google drop lower, and then it starts to consolidate as the call sellers take the foot off the gas right around 10:30. All right, so let's go back to Bookmap. Bearish opening drive. until the call sellers take the foot off the gas right around 10:30. Then consolidation now. Google trying to recover. All right, next stock. Now we'll take a look at a bullish opening drive and also call exhaustion, a call peak. All right, back to Hero. Now to Meta. Very bullish opening drive. Aggressive call sellers, call buyers at the open. And as they take the foot off the gas, that fuel that had driven Meta higher is gone now. Meta starts to drop lower. Looks like a large institutional order there. They were a little bit late. Buying calls at the top, so that vertical line there. And then the call sellers come in and they continue to sell calls. Meta continues to drop. Let's go back to Bookmap. All right, so no, Meta reverses lower, just below 725. That's the heat map in Bookmap shows limit sell orders right there at 725. Absorption at level. Meta reverses lower before that 725 level, and this is very typical. Those limit sell orders come in the order book right at the cash open and stay there until they're filled. So it looks like at 724 they were filled, the sell orders, but not 725. And then Meta continues to trade lower, now below the opening print, which was right at 715. Carl wants to take a look at Amazon. Yeah, we can take a look at Amazon. Let me get through the stocks that I'd planned, then we'll get to Amazon. Sure. All right, so the next stock, Tesla, stock of the day. Very bullish. Let's see what options traders are doing. So efficient here you go. Here's Tesla. All right, and Tesla, traders started buying calls shown by the rising orange line and selling puts right around 9:45. Orange line shows calls, blue line shows puts. And that really that continued pretty sharply up until about 10:20. Slowed down, and now exhaustion for both call buyers and put sellers. All right, and efficient here, you can see that call buyers, delta notional is about twice the size of the delta notional for the put sellers. So both are driving price higher, but call buyers mostly, again, with the delta notional about almost twice the size of the put sellers. All right, so again, when traders buy calls and sell puts, market makers take the opposite side of those trades. So they sell calls, buy puts, that's both negative delta, so they have to buy stock to hedge their delta exposure. They want to remain delta neutral. All right, so I hope that makes sense. Options market makers' job is to make markets and manage their risk. So that's key. They always want to remain delta neutral. So again, they're managing their directional risk primarily by buying and selling stock. All right, that's Tesla. Very bullish day. Let's take a look at AMD, another stock at the top of that list. Bullish opening drive. Primarily call buyers driving AMD higher. Rising orange line, flow alert. Put sellers took their foot off the gas right around 10:05. That line is pretty flat after that. And then that's when the call buyers took their foot off the gas as well. And AMD pretty much consolidating. Looks like there's still some call buyers coming in, but AMD price is not responding. Let's take a look at Bookmap. Go to AMD and Bookmap. AMD, a very fast bullish opening drive. Lasted about a half an hour. Limit sell orders at 174. They were consumed. Another test of that level. And then the call buyers and put sellers took the foot off the gas. And AMD consolidating. All right, last stock I had planned to take a look at, also at or near the top of that list, SMCI. I didn't have time to add price lines to this. Target is the 60 level. Let's see, note the high liquidity at that level, limit sell orders, acting as a magnet for price. Let's go to SMCI. All right, so no, that's not a Spotgamma level. All right, but this is a very nicely sustained bullish opening drive, lasting almost 90 minutes. Mark says, always insightful analysis and explanation. Thank you. You're very welcome, and thank you very much for your kind words. And Carr, you're welcome for the clarity. And thanks for your kind words. All right, so SMCI, very nice, steady uptrend. Again, flow alert, steady call buying till they take their foot off the gas. Whoops, sorry about that. Let's go to Bookmap. Nice pullback entries in this nice steady uptrend. And if price continues to move higher, the obvious target is the 60 high liquidity level. Limit sell orders at that level. All right, Carl wants to take a look at Amazon. Sure, we can do that. Kind of a choppy day in Amazon. We'll see what options traders are doing. Go to Amazon. So there were some call buyers. Pretty choppy price action in the morning, sharp drop. Call buyers come in. Let's zoom in on this just a little bit. Sharp drop at the open. White line is price. Call buyers come in right around 940. Move price higher. Take the foot off the gas. It looks like Amazon had already started to move lower. So other than this move from about 940 to 1050, not much of an options influence on Amazon today. Back to Bookmap. All right, so there's that move higher when the call buyers came in. Now Amazon consolidating. Oguz wants to take a look at SMH. So let's go back to Hero, take a look at SMH. All right, so net for the day, there are call buyers and put buyers. But the call buyers outnumber the put buyers in delta notional terms by about 3 to 1. So it looks like SMH may be slightly higher for the day. You're welcome, Carr. Anurag wants to see Trace. Yeah, we'll get to Trace. Let me take a look at IBM. Then we'll get back to the indexes and Trace. IBM call buyers. Kind of a nice steady opening trend up until about 11:30. A couple of call peaks there. Call buyers take the foot off the gas, and now IBM moving a little bit lower. Also, traders are starting to buy puts. All right, so a nice move higher in IBM, about 3 points, as traders buy calls. And Efficient here asks, says, thanks, Doug. You're welcome. How do you know options are being bought and sold? All right, so I'm looking at the direction of lines. It's that simple. So the direction of the lines is in terms of options delta. So a rising orange line indicates traders are buying calls. And a falling orange line indicates traders are selling calls. So think in terms of options delta. Then a falling blue line indicates traders are buying puts. So selling calls, buying puts, so that's both negative delta. And then buying calls and selling puts, that's both positive delta. All right, so again, it's as simple as that, just looking at the direction of the lines. All right, let's take a look at the indexes now. I'm going to shift back to the total signal. Let's go to the S&P 500 index. This index line continues to move lower, and this is bearish. Let's check the equity signal. Not as steep, but it is moving lower. Still positive net delta notional positive for the day. Back to the index signal again. I think it provides more clarity, and this is a pretty large number, especially for a Monday, at almost 7 billion negative. All right, let's go to Bookmap. Then we'll take a look at Trace. Go back to ES. All right, so ES continues to move lower. And it looks like this downtrend has steepened now. All right, let's see what's down below. All right, down below the SPY 635.0 gamma level, and then ES 6400, and just below that is the ES lower daily expected move. All right, so that would be interesting. With a round trip from the upper daily expected move to the lower daily expected move. So we'll keep an eye on that. All right, let's take a look at Trace. Anurag wants to take a look at Trace. Let's go back. All right, so it looks like SPX may be finding support now with this positive gamma right around 63.70. Which still a little bit down below. So looking, and that would be right above the 6400 level, like 6403, ES 6403. Looks like there was some positive gamma at at 75.6375. Looks like more earlier on. All right, so SPX now on the zone, kind of in between positive gamma below, negative gamma above. Let's check delta pressure. All right, so in a zone of slightly red, negative selling pressure, but buying support above and buying support below. We'll check charm. So this is showing selling pressure, red, due to time decay, charm. Change in delta and options as time passes. So potential pinning zones right now, pretty far down below, right around the Spotgamma applied one-day move low, which is right around 63.60. All right, back to gamma now. Let's go check Bookmap. All right, so the aggressive sellers are still, and you can see all the magenta volume dots that really began right around 12:30 as this downtrend accelerated, steepened. You can also see that with cumulative volume delta. And Abu asked if I can show GC. Sorry, I don't have gold here in Bookmap. It's not something I normally look at. GC is not really driven by options. I can take a look at GLD in Hero. We'll take a quick look at GLD. Let's go back to Hero. GLD. All right, traders taking negative delta positions in GLD today. So in the morning, they were buying puts and selling calls. Again, it's shown by the falling blue line for puts, falling orange line for calls. Took the foot off the gas. Auguste says, thank you very much, sir. You are an absolute gem. You're very welcome. And again, thank you very much for your kind words. All right, there's GLD. Let's shift back to total. Go back to the S&P 500 index. Continues to move lower. Again, we're looking at potential positive gamma support. Let's check NASDAQ. Actually, I'm going to leave that. Let's go to Bookmap, check NASDAQ. Continues to move lower. Did test the 23,300 large gamma 2 level again. Found support at that level. It was good for about a 30-point bounce. Did find support at the 320 put wall. Now that level may be acting as resistance. Let's zoom in a bit. Either that's a lower high or a higher low. Again, key for right now, support at the 300 level. Looks like that may be a higher low. Let's go check Hero for NASDAQ. All right, so the NASDAQ Hero signal turning a little bit higher. And also the MAG 7 signal turning a little bit higher. Anurag asks, is there a pace of tape indicator? S&P has been moving very slowly for the last many sessions. How do we anticipate that? Well, I would say that there is a tape. I don't know if this is what you're looking at or not, but this is a Spotgamma tool. May not be what you're looking for. Let's go to tape. So overall, I would anticipate just some consolidation after such a large move higher. Let's go back to Thinkorswim. Take a look at the daily chart for SPX. So SPX moved up pretty quickly. Actually, SPX has moved up from 4,800 to 6,400. And I would certainly anticipate some consolidation after that. And then this move, strong move after June expiration, continuing after July expiration. Certainly expect a little bit of consolidation after such a large move higher. And again, with SPX bumping up against a key level, 6,400. And Carr says, if you're watching YouTube, be sure to give Doug and Bookmap a thumbs up. Thank you. And Carr also says your ability to incorporate Spotgamma signals and Bookmap levels to help find trades is really insightful. Thank you very much. Thank you for your kind words. And I'm going to end it with that. Thank you very much for watching. Thanks for your questions and comments. I really enjoy it, this interactive questions and comments. So again, thank you very much. Thanks for watching. Remember, Wednesday, FOMC. We'll talk about that on Wednesday. Then I'll stop whatever I'm doing at 2 p.m. We'll take a look at the announcement and how the S&P 500 and NASDAQ are reacting to the announcement. Again, thank you very much. Have a great afternoon, and I will see you on Wednesday. Bye.